They've got Beck College.
You need these guys, and I think that's part of the reason he's going to be, quote-unquote, a star.
All right, what's going on, my friends? Chad here. It's now 3 o'clock. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. The NFL season continues tonight with an AFC West battle. Chargers and Chiefs from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Kickoff at 5. It's going to be on YouTube. Chiefs favored by 3.5. Micah Parsons limited at Packers practice. He's listed as questionable Sunday when the Green Bay will host Detroit. Packers favored by 1.5. The Seattle Mariners open the day 3.5 games back of the Astros in the West. 1.5 games in front of the Rangers in the wild card. Logan Gilbert will get the call. They're taking on Atlanta. First pitch at 4:15. Oregon favored by 28.5. Tomorrow they meet Oklahoma State at Autzen. Kickoff at 12:30 on CBS. Oregon State will host Fresno State. Kickoff at 12:30 on CW. Beavers favored by 2.5. Rip City Drive with Chad Doings coming up next. We'll talk to the Godfather Dwight James at 3:20. Tyson Alger stopping by to talk Ducks at 4:20.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's time for the Rip City Drive, hosted by the crazy and often irrational Chad Doing.
This game couldn't have started worse. Unsportsmanlike conduct on the Eagles. Unsportsmanlike conduct on the Eagles, in particular on Jalen Carter, and even worse, Carter, one of the Eagles' most impactful players, was ejected from the game on the very first, before the very first play from scrimmage.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Defense number 98. Number 98's defense actions has disqualified him from the game.
Whoa.
15-yard penalty.
Whoa.
Automatic. First down.
So Jalen Carter, the focus and the star for the Cowboys, for the Eagles on the front line, out for the game before a snap.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Hurts calling for the football. He's back. He's looking. He steps up. Still looking. Still looking. He's starting to run. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to do it yourself.
It hit me more on like my shirt of my collar, I guess, than straight skin, and thankfully. But yeah, I was just more surprised. I mean, like I said, I was insulted that he even thought I tried to spit on him. So then for him to react and spit, I'm sure it's not something he's proud of.
All right, what's going on, my friends? Rip City Drive, Chad Doing. The Godfather Dwight James will stop by in 20 minutes. I want to get his take on Oregon and Oregon State. Also, the allegations against Clippers owner Steve Ballmer and that bizarre company aspiration where Kawhi Leonard was paid $28 million for doing nothing. I need that type of gig. I will do it. In fact, I will just make the announcement right now. If there's any CEO of any large company out there that would like to pay me $28 million for a no-show job, I'm in. I'm in. Whatever you need me to do, if it means I do nothing and get $28 million, sign me up for that. I'll get $28 million. I'll play more golf, and I can fly around the country and go to all the great sporting events. I would love a job like that. So we'll talk to the Godfather at 3:20, and then Tyson Alger are going to stop by to talk Ducks ahead of the showdown with Oklahoma State at 4:20. You can reach out to me at 503-248-0620. You can always listen live and podcast the show via our free iHeartRadio app. And just go to youtube.com, pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620, and you can participate with the show. You can watch the live stream. Whatever you need is right there, even the old shows. But it's great to be here. Obviously, I'm loving the fact that football season is here, and we got the entire season kicked off last night in the NFL. We got college football, it's back. We have the NFL, it's back. And we have another game coming up tonight, Kansas City and the LA Chargers down in Brazil. That game, just a little note, it's going to be a 5 o'clock kick. It'll be on YouTube. Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. Sign me up for those type of games all day long. Not a big fan of the NFL moving a big-time divisional game outside of the country, but this is a big-time game because it could play into the key tiebreakers at the end of the year. These are two teams that are competing for division supremacy, and you have two of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. And I'm a big believer in Justin Herbert. I think he's one of the absolute best quarterbacks in the NFL. The only knock against him is that he hasn't won anything in the postseason. What is he, 0-2 in playoff games now? With the loss to the Jags and the Texans. I don't really give that much thought because both those games were on the road. What the Chargers need is a better regular season to better position themselves for postseason play. But I think Justin Herbert's awesome. So that's a big-time game tonight. And there's a number of terrific matchups, including Seattle and San Francisco on Sunday. But let's focus in on last night. Number one, I thought it was a great game. I thought the Dallas Cowboys were game. I thought Dak Prescott played extremely well. And if CeeDee Lamb had shown up for the game, they would have won that game. A couple of key drops late in that ball game last night by Lamb ended up being the difference in the game. But one thing for certain, Jalen Hurts is a perfect fit in that Eagles offense. And the Cowboys elected to go zone. They didn't really do a good job of spying Jalen Hurts. And he's one of those guys where if you're not paying attention, if you leave an opening in the defense, he can take off and burn you with his legs. He runs with purpose. He's got very good vision. And I thought he was masterful at working the game plan last night. And they've got a variety of different guys who can hurt you in the passing game, but also in their backfield with Saquon Barkley leading the way. But the Eagles last night showed what they can do. Now, unfortunately, we had a great opener where the Cowboys had a chance to win at the end as an 8.5-point underdog. But unfortunately, we're talking about the spitting incident before the game. Right before the game was about to get underway, Jalen Carter, one of the most dominant defensive forces in the NFL, spit on Dak Prescott. And he got immediately ejected from the game. I was like, wait, what? Did he just spit on him? You can't do that, but he did that.
This game couldn't have started worse. Unsportsmanlike conduct on the Eagles. Unsportsmanlike conduct on the Eagles, in particular on Jalen Carter, and even worse, Carter, one of the Eagles' most impactful players, was ejected from the game on the very first, before the very first play from scrimmage.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Defense number 98. Number 98's defense actions has disqualified him from the game.
Whoa.
15-yard penalty.
Whoa.
Automatic. First down.
So Jalen Carter, the focus and the star for the Cowboys, for the Eagles on the front line, out for the game before a snap.
There you go. Jalen Carter ejected from the game. Unsportsmanlike conduct for spitting on Dak Prescott. Now, I want to walk you through some of the audio from the coaches and from the players, including Dak and Jalen Carter, and then I'll share my thoughts on it. Unreal. The game hadn't even begun, and Jalen Carter, one of the best players on the field, gets booted. And as you'll hear from Dak, it changed their entire approach to the game. Because the one guy you have to double team on a regular basis is Jalen Carter because he can manhandle you. He takes over games. He's a big-time problem. Did you see him in the postseason last year? The guy's unbelievable. So let's, first off, take a listen to Dak Prescott.
I probably spit 1,000 times throughout the game. I mean, especially game day, maybe even in general. It's something I guess I'm not proud of. But in that case, he was trolling, I guess you could say, trying to mess with Tyler Booker. I was just looking at him. I was right here by the two linemen, and guess I needed to spit, and I wasn't going to spit on my lineman, and I just spit ahead. But I would say he was back there where Jory was in that sense, and he asked, or he goes, "You trying to spit on me?" And at that point, I mean, I felt like he was insulting me. Like, I wouldn't spit on somebody. I'm damn sure not trying to spit on you. Like, we're about to play a game. I'm wondering why you're trying to mess with the rookie. And so when I stepped through, I actually say the words like, "What the hell would I, excuse me, but I'm probably even more colorful. What would I need to spit on you for?" And he just spit on me in that moment. And it was more of a surprise than anything. Refs obviously saw it through the flag. I was like, hell yeah, we get 15 yards to start the game off.
There you go. There's Dak. All right, man. Jalen's out, and we get 15 yards. It's a great way to kick off the game. Here's Jalen Carter discussing the incident.
I heard the ref talking, and then I heard him say, "This is a tossable offense or something like that, yeah, that's when I knew.
Did you have a conversation with Nick, and if so, what kind of message did he relay to you?
I didn't have a conversation yet. I know we're going to have that conversation. They have to focus on the game still. I don't want to distract them from the game.
Are you worried you might be suspended before?
If I get that text or that call and by that conversation, then we'll handle it as then. I walked off the field calmly. I was not mad. That's pretty much, I couldn't really do nothing else. The ref decision is the ref decision on the situation. When things started to come out and you started seeing things, then we can go off that. But I don't got nothing to say about it.
All right, there's Jalen Carter. Incredible. And without him, the Eagles' pass rush not quite the same. He opens up a lot for the rest of his teammates because he's virtually unblockable. All right, let's take a listen to the coaches. Here's Nick Sirianni, head man for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I'm going to keep all our conversations and all my disciplinary things in-house, but we got to do it. We have to fix it as coaches.
Is this something where you might take disciplinary action against Jalen?
Again, I will keep everything in-house, and we will. You won't ever get that from me. Everything will always be handled in-house, just like private conversations that I have with players. None of that will ever be out to you guys. I'm sorry.
That's great. Nick Sirianni keeping everything in-house. Sometimes they say that the players take on the personality of their coach. I feel like Jalen Carter's taking on the personality of Philly fan. And Eagle fan would have no issue with an Eagle spitting on somebody else, especially a Cowboy. Brian Schottenheimer, head coach of the Cowboys, here are his thoughts on the incident.
Honestly, I didn't see it. I don't know. All I know is that a great player got ejected. And again, I don't know. I'll look into it, but I do not know.
How do you think that affected Did it affect your game plan at all and how you attack the defense, and how you think that not having Carter affected?
No, I mean, he's a great player. It'd be like, you lose a great player on either side of the ball. It affects them, and they're a little bit thin when you do that, and that's why, unfortunately, we weren't able to sustain the ball enough because, they were down a defensive lineman, and a great defensive lineman at that. But, again, like I said, we'll look into it.
How does that guy ask that question? Does that impact the game plan at all when Jalen Carter's not in there? Listen to this buffoon again. How in the world can you ask that question? It's pretty obvious.
Honestly, I didn't see it. I don't know. All I know is that a great player got ejected. And again, I don't know. I'll look into it, but I do not know.
How do you think that affected? Did it affect your game plan at all, and how you attack the defense, and how you think that not having Carter affected?
No, I mean,
yeah, of course it impacts everything. Even Dak talked about that on ESPN. It changes everything because your blocking schemes are different. You don't have to pay attention to that one guy. You don't have to worry about the double teams. Yeah, it's a major deal. And for Jalen Carter, who's such a great, great player, one of the best in the biz, he's just got to learn to keep his cool. So I watched it over and over again like you did. I do not think that Dak Prescott did anything to deserve Jalen Carter coming over and spitting on him. Dak Prescott spit towards the ground. He had his players around him. He did not step forward and try and launch a loogie onto Jalen Carter. So I don't think Dak did anything to deserve that. I think Dak had a few words for him. In fact, I was wondering what the words were that would produce that type of response. Did he say something about his mom? And for Jalen Carter, I think the league has to make it clear that we don't want the players spitting on one another. He was ejected before the game began, and he missed an entire game, the opener. So what I would do is drop a fine on Carter, and that's it. Time served. He already was out for an entire game. I don't think anything else needs to be done. If you want to drop a fine on him, then go ahead and do that. But I don't think Dak should be penalized at all, and that's where I feel. That's how I feel. But in terms of a game, I thought the Cowboys' offense looked very imaginative under Coach Schottenheimer. I thought Dak played a good game. And if CeeDee Lamb holds onto the football in a couple of situations at the end of the game, they probably win. And for the Eagles, this is what great teams do. They find ways to win on nights when they don't have their best stuff. And if you're going to play zone, you better spy Jalen Hurts or he's going to burn you with his legs. He's very good at that. All right, we'll come back. The Godfather, Dwight James, is going to stop by, and we'll get his take on Oregon and Oregon State coming out of week one. I want to get his thoughts on Steve Ballmer and the allegations against him and this company aspiration where Kawhi Leonard got $28 million for a no-show job, a company that Ballmer had invested $50 million into. That's coming up next. You got the Rip City Drive. Hope you're enjoying your Friday here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
I probably spit 1,000 times throughout the game. I mean, especially game day, maybe even in general. It's something I guess I'm not proud of. But in that case, he was trolling, I guess you could say, trying to mess with Tyler Booker. I was just looking at him. I was right here by the two linemen, and guess I needed to spit, and I wasn't going to spit on my lineman, and I just spit ahead. But I would say he was back there where Jory was in that sense, and he asked, or he goes, "You trying to spit on me?" And at that point, I mean, I felt like he was insulting me. Like, I wouldn't spit on somebody. I'm damn sure not trying to spit on you. Like, we're about to play a game. I'm wondering why you're trying to mess with the rookie. And so when I stepped through, I actually say the words like, "What the hell would I, excuse me, but I'm probably even more colorful. What would I need to spit on you for?" And he just spit on me in that moment. And it was more of a surprise than anything. Refs obviously saw it through the flag. I was like, hell yeah, we get 15 yards to start the game off.
All right, let's welcome in the Godfather, Dwight Jaynes. Now, Dwight, kind of a bizarre opener with the Jalen Carter getting booted from the game before it even began. One of the best defensive tackles in football, spitting on Dak Prescott. You've had a chance to see it. What was your reaction to what went down?
Well, you know, it's. I would worry a little bit about a guy who gets ejected 6 seconds into the first game he's ever playing as a professional football player. That would bother me a little bit. You know, how much control do you really have over yourself? Of course, he's a defensive player. He probably doesn't need a lot of control over himself because that's kind of uncontrolled aggression on that side of the football. But I don't know. He'd been better off taking a punch at him than he was spitting on him, I think. That's such an insult and not looked upon very well by other players and the league and anything else. It's kind of the ultimate cheap shot, and it'll be interesting to see how they penalize him.
Yeah, to see how the NFL responds to that. You know, he missed an entire first game. Do you think they should add another game to the situation and give him another game off, or just drop a fine on him and look at it as time served? What do you think would be the best message by the league?
Nah, I'd give him another game. He's a rookie, and you got to kind of tell him that this kind of stuff doesn't go, and you're going to have to sit down again. I think that's what I would think. I think just the game he missed isn't enough punishment. It has to be deeper than that. You don't want guys spitting on each other.
No, it's pretty gross. All right, let's talk a little football. Last week, Oregon opened up against Montana State, a much smoother opener than the previous season. But what were your takeaway from the Ducks? With Dante Moore, and they've got a couple of new defensive tackles in there that look pretty good. They got 2 new offensive tackles. The overall operation looks smooth. What was your takeaway from Oregon?
Well, they look terrific, but, aside from the game last season, I think a team ranked in the top 10 and now I think close to the top 5, you're supposed to go out and beat the crap out of those guys, and they did, and that's what they're supposed to do. So I kind of refuse to make a big judgment of what I saw against the Montana State team. I thought Moore was good. I didn't see enough of him, though, to make any kind of a broad generalization about him. I'd like to see how accurate he is, under pressure and with receivers who aren't quite as open as they were on Saturday. And then, their lines on both sides looked really good, I thought. But again, I don't know who they're playing against, so it's kind of hard to make a judgment. I think we'll know more this weekend about who they are. And so certainly I saw nothing to be alarmed about. Like last season was almost alarming in what we saw, and it was real easy for all of us, I think, to jump to conclusions and kind of over-evaluate what we saw. But it was I don't know what to think. At least I think they're going to they'll probably come out and give Gundy a pretty good spanking tomorrow, too.
Well, let's talk about Mike Gundy. He made headlines this week on his radio show back in Stillwater when he made comments about Oregon's spending and the money that they utilize through NIL. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Oregon is paying a lot of money for their team.
Yep.
So from a non-conference standpoint, there's coaches saying they should play teams that are spending the same amount of money.
So what do you figure they are? Probably triple what you pay, ballpark? Or do you know?
There's revenue sharing intact this year.
Yes, so that makes a difference.
Yeah, so some, but they haven't got their hands on it yet.
Gotcha.
So the last 3 years, you didn't have revenue sharing.
Right.
So, and it's funny you mentioned that because I guessed that the last 3 years that we spent around $7 million over the 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Oregon spent close to 40 last year alone.
Wow.
So that was just 1 year.
Okay.
Now, I might be off a few million, but
what's a few million among friends?
Well, what I'm saying is they're spending a lot of money. They spent a lot of money, and there's some schools that are doing that.
All right, that's Coach Gundy at Oklahoma State. Now, the way I read that, Godfather, was I don't think he was taking a shot at Oregon. I felt like he was trying to communicate to his donors and his fan base that, hey, Oregon's playing a different game than we are right now, and if you want to compete for Big 12 titles and you want to have a shot to get into the postseason, we've got to continue to have people step up and pump money into the program so we can get to the level we need to be able to compete. What was your take?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good picture of what went on, Chad. I just thought he came off a little bit whiny, and he's always kind of been a whiner. And, we didn't hear that kind of talk out of him back when he had T. Boone Pickens throwing all that money at his program.
Oh, by the way, I looked up that number. I think T. Boone, the total dollars that T. Boone kicked into the program, the school, $652 million.
Yeah. Well, didn't he? You're the expert on state of Oklahoma stuff, but didn't he build their stadium for him or something? He made a real big capital investment on something there.
Yeah, the stadium, the facilities, other buildings on campus. Like T. Boone has got his money behind multiple things on campus. So it's not like Oklahoma State is poor when you compare them to other schools around the country.
Yeah, Chad, what I don't like is, teams, D1 teams complaining about that. It's the way it is. That's just the way it is. And if you don't want to compete and spend the money, then drop down a level and go to the Big Sky if you'd like. I just don't get it. I mean, that's the reality. And yeah, go ahead, convince your boosters they need to reach deeper into their pockets, and I get that. But still, I don't know. It's unfair. Yeah, of course it's unfair, just like it always was, because, whatever you're seeing in NIL, teams used to cheat that much illegally. So it's not probably much different than it used to be. And the only reason you're seeing the other conferences gain a little bit on the SEC is they probably weren't cheating the way SEC teams were, 5 years ago. So that's the change that we're seeing now, and everybody has money to pay now. And so it's evening out a little bit, although that wouldn't last long because, Alabama, they're not getting the kind of money now that some of the other SEC schools are getting. So we'll see what happens. And, we're yet to see how this is all going to shake out with the new rules that they've just put in this summer. So I'm not sure where we're headed with college football, but it's probably never going to be fair.
No, I wonder if for certain coaches like Gundy, who's been there, for 2 decades, or guys who have been around the game coaching for an extended period of time, I wonder if it's harder for them than it would be a younger guy like Kenny Dillingham or Dan Lanning, because there's so much fundraising involved in the job now. So instead of coaching and focusing on your team, you've got to worry about the boosters. You got to worry about fundraising, and all these other details within the job become prominent in order to run the program the way you want. And I'm wondering if that adjustment for some of the guys who have been around for a long time is just really hard on them.
Well, Chad, there's no question about that. And I saw that earlier when the same thing happened when a lot of college athletic programs came upon hard times due to Title IX. And what we saw was schools eliminating their wrestling programs, their baseball programs, some of them their track programs, whatever. They had to get rid of those programs. But we also saw the coaches that were a little bit younger, maybe more energetic, who hadn't spent a lifetime in the old system, they went out and fundraised to save their programs. And that happened a lot. But what happened at the other schools was coaches who'd never had to fundraise for anything Basically just said, well, we can't compete. I quit, dropped the program, whatever. And that's kind of what happened. It's why, I think it's part of the reason that the Ducks dropped baseball for a while. Schools dropped wrestling programs for a while. We saw it at Portland State. They dropped wrestling and baseball because they weren't making any money, so let's drop them. But, had they had younger coaches maybe with an affinity for going out and raising money, they might have been able to save those programs.
All right, the Godfather Dwight James is with us. I want to ask you about Steve Ballmer, and I'm going to play some audio for you in just a moment. Ramon Shelburne, ESPN, sat down with him last night, and I watched the interview. But Aspiration is this company that was paying Kawhi Leonard, and I just want people to understand it, so I'm going to try and explain it very simply. From my understanding, Godfather, Aspiration was, like a green company where they were trying to reduce the carbon footprint of individuals by planting trees. And so they got a bunch of celebrity endorsers to get on board to talk about the company. Steve Ballmer said that it was something close to his heart, so he invested $50 million into the company. And apparently, Kawhi Leonard was on the payroll, and he got $28 million. I believe he still owed $7 million from this company that ended up getting into trouble for defrauding people. But take a listen to Ballmer. Shelburne asked him, hey, you can see why it would be easy for the fans to look at this and say, hey, here's a company that paid Kawhi Leonard $28 million that you invested $50 million into, and why it might be considered inappropriate. Here's what Ballmer had to say.
We signed that deal with Kawhi before any of this, before Kawhi even knows these people. We've signed our deal. That's high integrity. We made our deal with Aspiration. Literally, I had no control over the company. Literally, even when I invested, I think there was somebody who put in 6 times as much money as I did. No control. And that's okay. The average fan should understand that. And they went off and made a deal. I don't know what the deal is. Mm-hmm. I know what the reports are with the speculation. I don't know what the deal is or was. And frankly, I can't even tell you whether it's this much different, that much different, or not different at all from some of the other endorsement contracts that athletes do. Mm-hmm. In terms of amount, I don't know. I actually don't know the amounts of most endorsement deals. But when you look at Forbes magazine and they talk about the highest paid athletes, many of those top athletes, as Kawhi was a top athlete, is a top athlete, you read those things and they say they make more off endorsements than they do their, very large salaries. So I don't know what to expect, but I think the average fan may not either. Mm-hmm. But we did things by the book, and I don't know what those deals should look like, nor do I know what this one looked like specifically.
All right, there's Steve Ballmer. What's your take on this mess, Godfather?
Well, there's a lot to unpack with this, Chad, and on several levels. One thing I would say at the start is people have asked me, well, why would Aspiration do that? Why would they're not that big of basketball fans that they would just help out the Clippers? Well, they helped out for a very solid financial reason, and that is they got $50 million out of Ballmer. Now, they'll pay back most of that to Kawhi. But the thing is, when you're a company that's a startup, you need financing too. And so you need a capital stack. And so that $50 million that Ballmer gave the corporation, they can show that as part of their capital stack, but at the same time, they don't have to say what they're paying out right away. So they could look at this thing, at least in terms of the lenders, hey, we have $50 million here. Well, that's part of the reason this guy went to court, got hauled into court and found guilty on a couple fraud charges, because he was pulling stuff like this. Now, here's the other thing too. I don't know how Ballmer really thinks he's going to get away with this. It's going to be a real test for the NBA. If they go easy on him, it probably means other owners are doing the same thing, and they don't want Ballmer hauling them into court and making all of their financials public. So that is a worry for them. Now, if they're not doing that, Ballmer ought to be nailed on this one big time, and it should be a severe penalty, because the salary cap circumvention has never been something that the league has looked kindly on. It's really the whole basis for how the league is run, and it's the basis for whatever competitive advantages there are left. And so they can't ever allow people messing around with the salary cap circumvention. You just can't allow it. So we'll find out here soon what they find out, and I think there's a lot of little things that Ballmer can hide behind. Like he said in the statement, we made the deal separately. They were one of our sponsors, and you look around the league, there are several teams that have sponsors, have their name on the jersey, but at the same time, their players have separate deals with the same company as endorsers. Now, they probably had to do something in return for getting that money, but that's reality, and that's something that I'm sure Ballmer's going to try and hide behind.
Do you think he's guilty? And what do your instincts tell you on this?
Of course I do. Of course I do. Absolutely. Well, put it this way, Chad. He's got a little crazy streak in him, too. I don't think you'd argue with me on that. And
he's crazy.
He's got so much money. I doubt he ever worries about what he does financially, And so, I think he probably is guilty. And I'll confess, I probably like to think he is guilty. It doesn't bother me at all to think he's guilty. So we'll see. I'm not sure. The NBA being what it is, Adam Silver being a little soft in that job, you're not going to see a penalty handed down the way David Stern handed one down on Minnesota way back on the Smith deal. So, times are different now for sure.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I was just impressed that Ballmer was able to show some form of restraint last night in that sit-down with Ramona Shelburne. He did not get red-faced, and I was very upset about that because I kept waiting for the intensity and the beat red face to come out as he's like shouting at Ramona, "We did everything the way we were supposed to according to the rules." But there were a lot of arm movements there, Godfather. He was wanting to get up and start dancing around like he does it in Tuadome. I could feel it.
Well, I think part of that is he's guilty, and he's been coached on how to behave. If he wasn't guilty, then you'd see the jumping around and all that stuff, because he'd be incensed. If he was innocent on all this stuff, he'd be going crazy. But I think he knows he better behave himself, do things the right way, not say anything that's going to make things worse.
You and I need to find a gig where we can no show and get $28 million. How nice would that be?
Yeah, no kidding. I don't think I've ever had one of those. But don't you think in the media you have to work harder than you're supposed to get your money that's promised to you? I don't know anybody in this business that's got a free ride the way Kawhi did.
No doubt. I work my ass off for my pennies, Godfather, just like you have.
Yes, I know.
All right, one more question for you. And I've been asked this by a few Trailblazer questions, or not questions, but fans. Tom Dundon, the new reported owner of the Trailblazers, he has not made any public statements or commented on the purchase of the Trailblazers. Is it uncommon for this period of time to take place with no comments from Dundon, or is he just waiting before everything is finalized by the league owners before he makes some type of statement?
Chad, I think he has to keep quiet now. He doesn't own the team yet, and something could happen. And I don't think there's any reason to say anything right now. Certainly, it could complicate matters with the current people running the team. And, everybody over there is probably just a little on edge, thinking that, when this guy came in with the hockey team, he made a lot of changes. And, from the top down. And there's probably people worried about their job over there. So anything he would say might make that worse.
Yeah.
He owes it to them to let them operate the team the way they want. And, I think people are going to be trying to show him how competent they are in the way they run the team. So I don't think people that are waiting for him to say anything, it's not going to happen until the league takes action with the Board of Governors and with the commissioner and ratify this whole thing. Then it's going to be different. Then he's going to fly into Portland, and who knows what's going to happen, because I've said this before. Until they sit at that seat or on that throne, whatever you want to call it, you don't really know how they're going to act.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, I did ask my dad. I said, hey, Oklahoma State's in town. Do you want me to get tickets? We can go to the game together. He said, what makes you think I want to sit down there, watch my team get their face kicked in, and be surrounded by Duck fans? No, thank you. I said, fair point.
You know, and Oklahoma State, man, they've fallen, haven't they? Your dad can't be real pleased with what's going on there. I mean, I've been surprised at how rapidly this has happened to them.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of new faces, and most of them are young, and on top of that, they got a quarterback injury, so it could get really ugly on Saturday. Ugh.
Hey, Chad, answer me one question now. Which of the 15 different networks carrying the NFL this year do I have to watch tonight to see the Chargers?
I only know because I had to scour over the schedule to find out. It's going to be on YouTube tonight.
Oh, see, I don't even know if I have it. Do they automatically renew the package?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, I think YouTube was on for. I think they signed a multi-year deal, so I've got the ticket again this year. But I do know tonight's game is just being featured on YouTube. But that's a problem. You shouldn't have to search for Justin Herbert against Patrick Mahomes.
I know.
That's a good
I know,
right
and
there.
that's the problem these guys are running into. And you know, it used to be you would stream because it would be cheaper for you. It's getting to the point now where the old basic cable package is about the same price with a lot less trouble.
Yes. Yeah, no question about it. Well, Godfather, I appreciate it, buddy. We'll catch up soon and enjoy the games this weekend.
Yeah, you starting to get up for the whole start of the Blazer season? You getting ready? You doing your study and your homework?
I'm right now. I'm just trying to get through week 1 of the NFL and hope that Bo Nix looks like a guy in year 2 of Sean Payton's system. That's what I care most about.
You can't worry too much about that. He'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, I'm excited. I think the Broncos are going to be really good this year. Where that places them in a very difficult division, I'm not sure, but I do expect the Broncos to be a good football team. And from everything we're hearing from Sean Payton, Sean Payton has no problems telling you how good he is, and he has no problems talking about how much he loves his quarterback. That guy, Sean Payton's an arrogant guy.
Yeah, well, the good coaches usually are, it seems like. The one thing I would say after watching them in a couple of preseason games, Chad, even with backup quarterbacks on there, man, their offense looks really good, and so does their defense.
Yeah. I think the defense is going to be nasty.
They look pretty good.
Yeah, I had to look it up to make sure it was true. They led the NFL in sacks last year with 63, which is a franchise record, and I think the overall mark is 72 by the 84 Bears. So 63 is getting it done. So if you get pressure and you got 4 guys who can cover, they got a chance to be really good. No question.
Yeah. All right. Well, always a pleasure, Chad.
You got it, buddy. There's the Godfather, Dwight Jaynes. He says, I kind of hope that he is guilty. Speaking of Steve Ballmer, the red-faced man. It's crazy. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive. Big thanks to the Godfather, Dwight Jaynes. We love him. You can reach out, 503-248-0620. Michael Shacker is with me. We'll talk Ducks with Tyson Alger coming up at 420. I want to get his take on Mike Gundy's comments, but more importantly, what he's looking for from the Ducks in week number 2. I thought the operation was terrific in week 1, and they'll get a step up in competition from Montana State. But everything right now is just a tune-up for the big game coming up against Penn State. I'll share all my picks in college and the NFL. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Chiefs and Chargers from Sao Paulo, Brazil, coming up at 5 o'clock on YouTube. Right now, Kansas City is a 3.5-point favorite. I like the Chargers to cover that number tonight. And this is a stat that's very interesting. If you're looking for some type of angle on the game tonight, play against the defending Super Bowl loser as an underdog or favorite of 8 or fewer points in game 1 of the season if they are facing a division opponent. And that is the case tonight with the Kansas City Chiefs playing the LA Chargers. And that is 12-0 going all the way back to 1988. So there you have it. The numbers against the Chiefs tonight as they are favored by 3.5. But it should be a good matchup. Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, really looking forward to that game. And it's a critical game. And, you know, I hope the NFL takes a longer look at which games they're going to schedule out of the country. If you want to do an interconference matchup, that's fine. Even a conference matchup, but leave the division games because they're so critical in the standings. Leave those to the home stadiums. Now, I know that the Chargers, when they play in LA, because they haven't really found any footing in Los Angeles, you typically have a 60-40 split with road fans taking over the stadium. And depending on the team, the Chiefs sometimes, the Broncos, you could have 70% of the stadium filled with opposing teams' fans. But still, being at home, being in your own bed, being able to have access, easy access to your stadium, there's a lot of advantages to playing in your home stadium. I just don't want the division games to be moved out of country where it's a disadvantage for the home team. You know, you get 6 games in division every year, and those games are the most important for the division standings, for tiebreakers, for all of it. And these two teams are going to be battling for, you know, division supremacy. The AFC West, I think, is the best division in football. You've got Kansas City, who is dominant. Andy Reid is head coach. Patrick Mahomes is quarterback. The Chargers with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. And Harbaugh continuing to put, you know, his personality on this team with the way he's structuring the roster. They're going to be tough defensively. They want to be strong at the line of scrimmage. They want to be a team that runs the football and, you know, really imposes their will on you. And then you got the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton, who has really done a heck of a job of building a roster, even with the dead money from Russ still on the cap. Their defense is loaded up. They're one of the best defenses in the league last year. They added better players on that side of the ball this year. You've got Bo Nix going into year number 2. And then you've got the Raiders, who, for the most part, are a laughingstock, but not this year because Pete Carroll takes over. He's brought in some veterans, and you're going to see a team playing with purpose, having an understanding of what they want to do on both sides of the football. And they're just going to be a much better operation now with Pete Carroll in charge. Those 4 coaches, Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, 4 best coaches in one division in the history of the NFL, no question about it. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Tyson Alger going to talk Ducks coming up at 4:20. You can jump on board if you want, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, it's now 4 o'clock. What's up, my friends? Chad here. The NFL season will continue tonight. AFC West battle, Chargers and Chiefs from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Kickoff at 5. It's going to be on YouTube. Right now, the Chiefs favored by 3.5. Micah Parsons limited at Packers practice. He's listed questionable Sunday when Green Bay will host Detroit. The Packers a 1.5-point favorite. Oregon favored by 28.5 tomorrow. They'll meet Oklahoma State at Autzen. Kickoff at 12:30 on CBS. Oregon State will host Fresno State. That kickoff at 12:30 on CW. The Beavers favored by 2.5. The Seattle Mariners open the day 3.5 games back of the Astros in the West, and are 1.5 games up on the Rangers in the wild card. They'll look to stop the bleeding today in Atlanta against the Braves. First pitch coming up in 15 minutes. Logan Gilbert will get the call for the M's. Tyson Alger going to stop by and talk Ducks at 4:20 on the Rip City Drive. All right, Tyson Alger going to stop by in 20 minutes. Want to get his take on the Ducks, his impressions of what he saw in week 1, and we'll talk about the Mike Gundy comments. You know, I didn't really have a big issue with what he said because I didn't think he was taking a shot at Oregon. You know, the problem is he named a team, but we've heard other coaches talk about some of the disparity in NIL spending. But I didn't think Gundy was taking a shot at Oregon. I think he was trying to give his fan base and donors some real talk. Hey, this team we're facing on Saturday is playing a different brand of football. And if you want to compete in the Big 12 and have a chance to win a conference and make the postseason, we got to step up our contributions because you're going to need money to be able to compete at the level where we need to compete in the Big 12. I think that's what he was getting at. And he talked about that. Take a listen once again to Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy.
You know, Oregon is paying a lot of money for their team.
Yep.
So from a non-conference standpoint, there's coaches saying they should play teams that are spending the same amount of money.
So what do you figure they are? Probably triple what you pay, ballpark? Or do you know?
There's revenue sharing intact this year.
Yes, so that makes a difference.
Yeah, so some, but they haven't got their hands on it yet.
Gotcha.
So the last 3 years, you didn't have revenue sharing.
Right.
So, and it's funny you mentioned that because I guessed that the last 3 years that we spent around $7 million over the 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Oregon spent close to 40 last year alone.
Wow.
So that was just 1 year.
Okay.
Now, I might be off a few million, but
what's a few million among friends?
Well, what I'm saying is they're spending a lot of money. They spent a lot of money, you know, and there's some schools that are doing that.
All right, that's Mike Gundy on Oregon's spending. He also was asked about Dante Moore and talked about the Ducks quarterback and then threw another jab in there about the money.
They say, whoever they is out there, they say that before he leaves there, he'll be the best player to ever play there, quarterback.
Okay.
Now, that's been said.
Now, Justin Herbert that starts for the Chargers, we might add, was an
Mariota.
And Mariota. And, they've had a few dudes that are good.
He's a good player. He's a really good player, but there's people around there that feel like that they say he'll be the best one to ever play there before he leaves.
Wow. And we'll get to see him probably
a lot of money to keep him.
This is true. This is true.
All right, there's Mike Gundy. Now, as you know, Dan Lanning, not appreciative of his comments. You know, and Dan Lanning fired back at him and said, hey, you've got to invest in winning if you want to be competitive in college football. And we're very happy that we have those opportunities here at Oregon.
There is, listening to him talk. Like I said, I got a ton of respect for Coach Gundy. Ultimately, how blessed are we to be in a place that's invested in winning? If you want to be a top 10 team in college football, you better be invested in winning. And we spend to win. Some people save to have an excuse for why they don't, right? And ultimately, he's a great coach. They've done an unbelievable job, but I want to be a team that's competing at the highest level. And we're really fortunate to be in that situation. So I can't speak on their situation. I have no idea, what they got in their pockets over there. I'm sure UT Martin maybe didn't have as much as them last week, and they played. So we'll let it play out.
Love that. Love the fiery nature of Dan Lanning. I think what Mike Gundy is trying to communicate is, hey, we need everyone to step up and contribute if we want to compete at the level that you guys desire, because that's where the sport is going. I think the most important thing for Gundy is not to compare Oklahoma State to Oregon, but to take a look at the rest of the teams in the Big 12. So take a look at Arizona State and Arizona and Utah and TCU. Are we on the same level with those schools in terms of what we're spending when it comes to NIL and investing in the program? And if you are, then you're right where you need to be. Now, if you're not keeping up with the teams in your conference, then that could be a bigger issue. But certain schools can't or shouldn't compare themselves to others. I mean, Oregon has great resources and spends a lot of money, but they're not the level of Ohio State. So I just think Mike Gundy was trying to send a clear message to, his donors of what is needed to compete in today's college football. Now, the difference with Gundy is he attached the school's name to it, in this case, Oregon. Kenny Dillingham has been on this, crusade over the last year because he's been fundraising and trying to boost up, the dollars that come into his program, saying, hey, if you like what we did last year winning the Big 12 and you want us to continue to have a chance at making the playoff, then we need you to step up. It's going to require more of this because the better we play, the more wins we have, the better players we get, the more valuable those guys become. And it's going to require money to keep it together. I just think a lot of these old heads, they don't want to deal with the fundraising. The job has become so much more than what it used to be. Like a lot of jobs now. How many of you take a job, but you end up, if you look at your daily tasks, you basically have like 3 titles based on all the work you do. And I think a lot of these coaches who they love drawing up the X's and O's. They like to game plan. They like the games. They like the coaching end of it. But the reality is now you've got to be out there on the forefront fundraising, talking to people, working with donors, doing anything and everything you possibly can to get more money coming into the program. And I think that's tough for some of those guys that have been around for a long time to adjust. We've seen Dabo Sweeney, bristle against the new age of college football. Most of the young guys are fine. Dan Lanning, so sharp and so energetic. Kenny Dillingham, another guy who's terrific in that role. So we'll see how things play out. But it should be a big win for Oregon. And for me, I just want to see more of the same of what we saw against Montana State. A good balance in the offense, continuing to run the football. They had perfect balance, 253 passing, 253 rushing against Montana State. I want to see that commitment to continuing to find that balance, running the football with confidence and allowing that offensive line to take over. And just fine-tune. Get Dante more comfortable in the offense, more comfortable with the operation, so that you can put yourself in the best position to have a chance to compete against Penn State and win that game in Happy Valley coming up at the end of September. That's what it's all about. That's what these games are for right now. It's a tune-up to get yourself in a position to where you can go into Penn State and get a win. And there you have it. But I thought Dante Moore was terrific. And I can't wait to see more of Dante Moore as he gets more comfortable and just a better feel on running the operation there at Oregon. But that was a very good first start. But his athleticism, the way he threw the football, and of course, like Dwight said, you've got open guys. The competition you're facing is not the same. But I like the way everything operated. Good balance on offense. The defense looks very stout, and I think the defense has got a chance to be one of the best in the country before it's all said and done. So I'm very excited about this weekend. Both teams kick off at 12:30 on Saturday, and both teams are playing at home, Oregon State and Oregon. So if you're heading down to either Corvallis or Eugene from Portland, you might want to consider getting an early start on it. Some people will go down the night before. Some people are going to take off early. I know Shacker's going to take off at around, between 5 and 6 a.m. to get down to Corvallis on time, but it could get a little bit messy out there. I'm going to be down at Spirit Mountain Casino. It would be a great place for you to hang out with me because both games kick off at 12:30. I'm going to be in the sports book, and there's going to be a drawing at 4 o'clock. It's called Bet College Ball. And so if you walk up to the counter and you place a $25 parlay, and it can be whatever size you want, 2 teams, 3 teams, 4 teams, whatever. So you make your parlay, and you'll get a ticket to place in the drum for the drawing at 4 o'clock. And there's going to be cash prizes like $500, $300, and $200 in cash. There are other prizes they're giving away as well. And you can do up to 4 parlays per day to where you get a drawing ticket. So if you're going down tonight, put in 4 parlays, you get 4 tickets for the drawing on Saturday. And then on Saturday, put in 4 more parlays, and you get 4 more tickets for the drawing. And as the sportsbook manager, Justin, told me, you can make the parlays can't miss. You could do a $25 parlay with 2 teams on the money line, 2 teams that you know are going to win, and then, boom, you're set. You get a ticket for the drawing, and you got a chance to win some cash at 4 o'clock. So come down and join me if you're not going to one of the games here in town. And I've got to pay attention to that, too. What time do I roll out to make sure I hit the casino on time because of all the traffic that's going to be out there on the road? It's going to be a little bit messy. Good games in the morning. One good game, the Cy-Hawk Trophy. Iowa State will kick off at 9. Oregon and Oregon State both play at 12:30. At 4:30, you've got Arizona State at Mississippi State and also Michigan and Oklahoma. On paper, Michigan and Oklahoma is the game of the weekend, but, you just watch. Every time we think going into a weekend that there's not going to be any good games, or at least it doesn't appear to be any good games on paper, there's always games that turn out to be close because upsets happen every weekend. So we'll probably look back at the weekend and say, dude, that was good. I didn't expect it, but those are some good games. And I'm sorry about the noises. I've had a little congestion this week, and so I'm battling it right now. And so every once in a while, it rears its ugly head. So if you're hearing funny noises in the microphone, that's why. All right, Tyson Alger, he's going to join us next, and we'll talk about Gundy. We'll get his take on what he thought about Gundy's comments. And we'll talk about the Oregon operation coming out of week 1 and what he's looking for in week number 2. And the Chargers and Chiefs will kick off coming up here at the top of the hour, 5 o'clock on YouTube for the second NFL game of the year. And then we'll get a full slate of games coming up on Sunday. And I've got all my picks coming up later in the show. All right, jump on board, 503-248-0620. You can find me on X at Chad and Rip City. Tyson Alger's up next on the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, this man covers everything along the I-5 corridor. I'm very happy to welcome Tyson Alger back to the Rip City Drive. And Tyson, all I ask is that you stop posting stuff from Double Mountain, because all you're doing is tempting me with a certain number of calories that I do not want to consume, man. But awesome, great pie.
Yeah, but it's got tomatoes and stuff on it, so it's healthy, right? Right?
Dude, those pictures are so good. That Double Mountain is awesome. Like, I love a good pie, and you get a good brew to go along with that. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to spend a Sunday afternoon. I wasn't complaining.
No question about it. I want to play this for you. I've talked about it. I want to get your take on it. But here is Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy on his radio program talking about Oregon spending.
You know, Oregon is paying a lot of money for their team.
Yep.
So from a non-conference standpoint, there's coaches saying they should play teams that are spending the same amount of money.
So what do you figure they are? Probably triple what you pay, ballpark? Or do you know?
There's revenue sharing intact this year.
Yes, so that makes a difference.
Yeah, so some, but they haven't got their hands on it yet.
Gotcha.
So the last 3 years, you didn't have revenue sharing.
Right.
So, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I guessed that the last 3 years that we spent around $7 million over the 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Oregon spent close to 40 last year alone.
All right, there's Mike Gundy. Now, Tyson, when I heard that, I just thought he was basically calling out his donors and the people that support his program that, hey, if you want to compete at the level that you desire, we need to step our game up, because right now Oregon is playing a different game than we are. What was your read on Gundy's comments?
Yeah, it was a mixture of that, because I mean, like, it's what it is. Like in college football right now, especially after like the consolidation of all this money, it's the haves and the have-nots. And I thought Dan Lanning spelled it out pretty perfectly right after that by saying, you know, we invest to win. Like, that's what you have to do if you want to be a top 10 program. So I didn't necessarily see this in the way of like Gundy calling out Oregon in the way that maybe some other people did. But I also do think it's a little bit ironic that just, you know, before NIL and all of this, you know, Oklahoma State was never lacking for money. They had one of the biggest donors in all of sports as one of their alumni up until he passed in 2019. So it's, you know, Oklahoma State has been in a position where they've had a significantly larger budget than some of the other schools that they've been playing. I think Gundy's just a little upset that here in week 2, after they're 1-0, they have to go over to Eugene and play a team that's probably going to beat the snot out of them. It is funny to me, too, though, that, boy, that number that Oregon allegedly paid last season just seems to kind of skyrocket each subsequent interview. Because I remember last year at first it was people throwing around like $15 million, and then it was $20 million, and that's the first time I've seen the $40 million figure thrown around. But yeah, so I think it's a mixture of, you know, a competitive coach who's looking at this situation and being like, how the heck are we going to have a chance in this game? I also do doubt Gundy's own account of saying that they've only spent $7 million over the last 3 years. I think he might be underselling that a little bit. And if they're not, like, they're in bigger trouble than any of us really do realize.
Yeah, no question. I don't buy that number. I think he's underselling it a bit. And I looked it up. You know, the estimates of T. Boone Pickens kicking money to Oklahoma State University, it's somewhere roughly in the neighborhood of $652 million. Like, Oklahoma State's not a poor school. They're not poor. That's big money. It's not Phil Knight money, but it's big.
Well, and the thing is, you know, everyone just kind of assumes they know what's in Oregon's pockets because they have one very, very famous donor. It's Nike. It's Phil Knight. Like, it's they go hand in hand. A lot of these other schools, especially those schools in Oklahoma and Texas and down in the South that really like their football, like they're not short on whether it be, you know, oil guys or other billionaires. Like they all have money. It's just where they decide to spend it. And right now, Oregon has decided to spend it going all in on football because it wants to be a top 10 program. And, you know, Gundy could have picked any top 10 program and said the exact same thing. It's just a matter of what the sport is right now. And I thought it was kind of funny that he was hiding behind coaches are saying that they should play teams in the similar financial ballpark as them. It's like, well, what coaches are saying that, Mike? Is it you? Because it kind of just sounds like it's you that's saying that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Well, that week one operation for Oregon, you couldn't ask for better balance on offense. 253 yards passing, 253 yards rushing. The defense looked dominant. I know it's Montana State, but, I mean, that's pretty much exactly what you wanted to see in the opener, right, Tyson?
Yeah, it's been really nice this week not having to like dive into like what went wrong, and that's what a lot of and that's what a lot of last year was. Even though they did win that game against Idaho, but
Yeah.
it was a game where Oregon had to play its starters until the end of the game last year just to get by, and that wasn't the case this year. You know, the Ducks asserted themselves from the start. They got to do what they wanted on offense. They got to do what they wanted on defense, and by the middle of the third quarter, they had most of their starters out. It was basically as perfect of an opener as you can get for a team that has a lot of young guys that need to get some playing time and that need to prove themselves. You know, the offensive line was great. It didn't allow a single negative play. The defensive line stopped a pretty good Montana State rushing attack. I think they limited them to like 46 yards or so. Dante Moore looks comfortable. He made smart decisions. He didn't force the football in any situations he didn't need to. So, yeah, I mean, of all the things that, like, we could have, you know, highlighted before the game of things that, like, we need to see, or if this doesn't happen, we'd be concerned. Like, none of those are bad. Like, it's all green lights for the Ducks heading into week 2.
You know, Tyson, I'm wondering with Dante Moore, because I agree with you. He was making good decisions, very decisive. He looked really comfortable out there. He's in a unique spot where he had a chance to play young at UCLA. Then he comes back to Oregon, and he has a chance to sit and observe for a year, and now he takes over again as starter. I'm just wondering that transition of playing and then getting a chance to sit back and watch and learn from Dylan Gabriel and understand the offense of Will Stein. Like, I wonder how much that really did help him. And has he talked about that?
Yeah, you know, I think more than anything, it really taught him that he doesn't need to be the hero on every single play. I mean, he can go back and watch what Dylan Gabriel did last year, and Dylan was a very talented passer. You know, he could throw the ball downfield, he could read the defense, but what made him so effective and what made Bo Nix so effective is they took everything that was given to them, whether that be short stuff, whether that be long stuff, whether that be medium stuff. It was this is an offense that has a lot of skilled players. It's an offense that creates a lot of open opportunities for receivers, and it's just a matter of getting them the ball. We all know Dante Moore can throw the ball a country mile. We know he has the fastball. We know he can throw the ball through a window. It's just being able to be in situations where it's like, okay, I don't have to do that right now. And there was one play towards the end of the first quarter where I was particularly impressed with that. It was third and goal. The Ducks were from the 10. Moore was rolling out to his right, and like he saw 2 or 3 guys that he kind of maybe wanted to throw to in the end zone, but it just wasn't there. So he tucked it, ran it out of bounds. The Ducks kicked the field goal. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't a highlight, but Oregon got its 3 points. They didn't take a turnover, and they kept moving on. And like, those are just the types of plays where it wasn't really notable in this game, but you know, we saw last year in certain situations in the red zone, Dylan Gabriel would force the ball every once in a while. And I just think, you know, seeing a guy who hasn't played in 2 years that is coming in with expectations that like really wants to show that he's the guy, I thought that was pretty mature of him to be able to go like, I know I can make this throw, but I'm going to take the smart play instead.
Yeah, it's terrific. I agree. Sometimes understanding the situation and living to fight another down is the right way to do it. Don't make the mistake, and he was able to do that on Saturday. How important do you think it will be for the Ducks secondary to get a better test this weekend as they continue to ramp up before the Penn State game?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do in this game. Obviously, Oklahoma State's coming in with a different quarterback situation. Their starter got hurt last week. The guy this week's going to be making his first career start. So it's not like they're going to be facing a Heisman contender per se, but you know, teams don't just change philosophies overnight. Oklahoma State's a team that likes to take shots. They like to go deep. This is an Oregon secondary that was massively retooled in the offseason. It's one that is significantly bigger than it's been in past seasons. Just about every starter is above 6'1". And I would like to see them take advantage. I'd like to see some turnovers. I'd like to see some interceptions. Like if you want to take one, it's not even a negative, but one thing that the Ducks could have improved upon in that Montana State game is there was probably 2 to 3 balls that I thought could have been picked off or turnovers or taken advantage of, and that just didn't happen. And if you look at the way Dan Lanning's defenses have operated the last few seasons, I believe last year was their worst ranking nationally in terms of turnovers by the secondary. So, if they can start to add a few more there and start to take advantage of that, I think that can be a very added dimension to a team that, frankly, has struggled in larger situations, shutting down big-time receivers. You can look at Ohio State last year with Jeremiah Smith in the Rose Bowl. You can look at the 2 years of Washington games with Rome Odunze. I think that this year's team is built to be able to stop that caliber of receiver a little bit better. We just need to see what it looks like in action.
What did you think about the receiving group in week one?
Boy, I think DeCorian Moore is going to be pretty fun to watch wherever they line him up on the field. I mean, I think he could be almost in the same vein as DeAnthony Thomas, where he's either coming out of the backfield, he's coming out of the slot, he can line up wherever he wants. Wasn't expecting a hurdle from him in game one, but hey, that's a nice perk. But between him and I know he's not a receiver, but Kenyon Sadiq, I mean, boy, I feel bad for that Montana State DB who had to line up against him one-on-one there on that touchdown. But that was a physics lesson, Chad. That was big guy versus small guy, big guy wins. And so, we didn't really see any of the other receivers really kind of establish themselves as I'm going to be that guy. But in terms of having two game breakers, the Ducks definitely have those in Sadiq and Moore.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I was happy because I was told by multiple people that, they were concerned about the Ducks receiving corps being young and not having much experience, but to see them play as well as they did in week one, I walked away with optimism. And like you said, with the unique skill set they have with multiple different guys and what they can do, it's going to open things up for Will Stein. But I walked away pleased with what I saw.
Yeah, and the nice thing too is, and this is part of the reason why you want to run the score up in these games is they were able to play a lot of guys. I think 10 different guys caught passes in this game. I think 9 or 10 guys had rushes as well too. So they were able to get a lot of tape on some of the younger guys. They were able to get some guys some playing time before you get into the throes of the regular season where there's a lot more pressure on it. So yeah, I was impressed, and I think the coaches were pretty satisfied with what they were able to see out of the offense in that game.
Coming out of week one, there's so many options, but Arch Manning's debut, how it didn't work out so well for Texas, Alabama getting worked by Florida State, LSU's defense really suffocating Clemson, Miami, and the way they were able to control the line of scrimmage against Notre Dame. What jumped out at you outside of the state of Oregon in week one?
Oh, Miami holding on to that thing was impressive. I mean, Cristobal almost Cristobaled it.
He tried to. He tried to, Tyson. Jeez.
Some guys just try to, have their finishing move, and Mario's finishing move is having everybody scared to death in the final seconds of the game as he learns what timeouts to use. I thought that was interesting. It'll be a fascinating season for Miami because Mario has recruited the heck out of that program, and they're at a point now where they should contend, and they've kind of reached where they were with Oregon when he was here. It's okay, we know this guy can build, but can he actually coach these guys on the field? And I think it's just going to consistently be a roller coaster for Mario. But then, the Ohio State-Texas game was fascinating because in one sense, if you're Oregon, you're boy, I'd love to be playing in this type of game week one, right? I want everybody looking at our team and having that 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3 matchup. But at the same time, how miserable do you think it's been in Texas the last week?
Oh,
you came into the season number 1. You have a quarterback who you think is going to be the best in the country. And look, I'm not ready to bury Arch, but just the getting through those games just staves off a week of bad discourse. And yeah, maybe Oregon didn't play anyone in week 1, but we're sitting here talking good things about Dante Moore and the offense instead of being in Texas position saying the sky is falling.
No, I agree. I like where Oregon sits. When you got a big game like Penn State here at the end of September, I would much rather play Penn State a few weeks in than at the beginning of the year because now Oregon at least through the first few weeks, we'll have a chance to tune up and, get Dante Moore used to being under center with the Ducks and getting the new tackles kind of acclimated to what's going on and get everyone on the same page, the young receivers with Will Stein's offense. So then when they go into Penn State, hopefully they've got some continuity and a little confidence to go out there and get the job done. I like how it sets up for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I know these college kids are maybe older than they were 10 years ago or so, but I think they still need some positive results and momentum and being able to like see that they can do it. And you know, that's what this week was for. There was a lot of positive that they can build on. And, you know, the thing about Dan Lanning is I'm sure that it wasn't hard for him to find things for them to work on after watching that tape too. So it's kind of best of both worlds where kids aren't getting buried in the media all week while coach can still figure out how to make the team better.
All right, final question for you. Oregon's favored by 28.5. I mean, is this a game where do you just see it being a bloodbath, Oregon dominates, or do you think Oklahoma State will, you know, provide some resistance, maybe a half of resistance, or how do you see it playing out?
I think that 28.5 is very fair, and I wouldn't have been surprised to see it increase a little bit after even if it was smoke and mirrors, the Lanning Gundy stuff this week. Yeah. I don't think many people were going to be watching this game, you know, to begin with. It's a early kickoff. It's a non-conference between a good team and an okay team, but I think just the little headlines that the coaches generated is going to put a few more eyeballs on it, and I think Oregon's playing pretty good. So,
have you ever been at a press conference where a coach has pulled up his shirt and showed the midsection like Gundy?
Not quite. I've been waiting for that day, though.
All right, Tyson Alger covers everything along the I-5 corridor. Hey, Tyson, man, enjoy the games this weekend. I appreciate your insight, and we'll catch up in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy. There's Tyson Alger. Love talking with him, and big weekend here in the state of Oregon with both the Beavs and the Ducks kicking off at the same time. But, yeah, I think Oregon's going to win handedly, as does my father, who did his undergrad and graduate work at Oklahoma State. He loves the Cowboys. My Uncle Truman has been oddly quiet this week. He lives down in southern part of Oklahoma. He is a huge Cowboy fan, and he goes to most of the games. So, you know, he is always hitting me up about Oklahoma State. But he hasn't said much this week, and I think that's because he knows what's coming. You know, sometimes you just have to bend over and take your ass whooping like a man. Oregon's just on a different level. But love what I saw from them in week one. And the question is, can Oregon State bounce back and get the win against Fresno State before they have to go on the road to take on Oregon and Texas Tech? Yeah. Tough. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. Rip City Drive. Big thanks to Tyson Alger, also the Godfather Dwight James for joining the show. You can find me on X at Chad and Rip City. And don't forget, you can always listen live and podcast the show via our free iHeartRadio app. All right, just a reminder, tonight's Chiefs-Chargers game is on YouTube, and it's free. So if you've got YouTube, you can join the live stream right now. That game's going to come up here at the top of the hour. Kansas City favored by 3.5 as we have got the NFL season underway now. The Cowboys last night fall short of the Eagles in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia starts out the season 1-0 as they look to defend their championship. And I thought Dallas overall played a good game. Dak Prescott was impressive. I thought the overall operation underneath Coach Schottenheimer was good. And if CeeDee Lamb can hold on to a football, the Cowboys probably win that game. And that's got to be tough for CeeDee because those wide receivers, they're always calling for the ball. They always tell the quarterback they're open. They're out there on the island. And then the quarterback comes your way and you don't come up with the play. I thought the one down the sideline where he had to dive and extend, that's a tough catch. I still think he should have caught it, but that's understandable if you don't come up with that grab. But the one over the middle that was in traffic, it hit both his hands, and he didn't secure the ball. You got to make that catch. That was your chance to win the game right there. And if he catches that football, I believe that Dallas would win the game. But he was unable to get the job done. What impressed me the most, though, was Dak Prescott. Say what you want about Dak. I know a lot of people are critical of his game. I think he's a really good quarterback. He's not in the upper crust with Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow. He's not one of those guys, but he is a good quarterback and somebody that is a great leader. I think he's exactly who you want as the face of your franchise. Good dude, teammates like him, great in the locker room, a good leader, and a productive player. But what I loved the most about last night was how he responded to the spitting incident. He didn't lash out after it happened, and after the game, he just played it cool. He handled it exactly the way I would expect Dak to handle it.
I probably spit 1,000 times throughout the game. I mean, especially game day, maybe even in general. It's something I guess I'm not proud of. But in that case, he was trolling, I guess you could say, trying to mess with Tyler Booker. I was just looking at him. I was right here by the two linemen, and guess I needed to spit, and I wasn't going to spit on my lineman, and I just spit ahead. But I would say he was back there where Jory was in that sense, and he asked, or he goes, "You trying to spit on me?" And at that point, I felt like he was insulting me. I wouldn't spit on somebody. I'm damn sure not trying to spit on you. We're about to play a game. I'm wondering why you're trying to mess with the rookie. And so when I stepped through, I actually say the words what the hell would I, excuse me, but I'm probably even more colorful. What would I need to spit on you for? And he just spit on me in that moment. And it was more of a surprise than anything. Refs obviously saw it through the flag. I was like, hell yeah, we get 15 yards to start the game off.
There you go. Dak Prescott. But that's how you handle that. He didn't overreact. He didn't lose his cool. And he didn't have any bad things to say about Jalen Carter after the game. And I know Dwight said Jalen Carter was a rookie. He is not. He's been in the league now, this is year number 2 for Jalen Carter. Yeah, Carter lost his cool. I don't care what Dak says. It doesn't matter what Dak said or what you thought he was trying to do. You don't spit on another player. Now, I wasn't deeply offended by it. I think that the NFL should fine him. He already served a game. He didn't play a single down in the game last night, and you'll be fine. But you got to keep your cool because Jalen Carter's a difference maker. He's somebody that when he's on the field, you have to account for him. He'll destroy your game plan. That's how he rolls. He will destroy your game plan. Yeah, Jalen Carter's only 24 years old. He's a youngin', but a dominant football player. Yeah, he's got 3 years of experience. Yeah, but Jalen Carter's great. Great player, dominant at his position. And when he's not in the field, it changes the way that you play. And he was a dominant force last year. I mean, he really was a one-man wrecking machine throughout their playoff run and winning the championship because you can't block him. And if you double team him, that frees up opportunities for other guys along that defensive front. But I think the Eagles last night showed what they're made of. Great teams win on nights when they don't have their best stuff. And I think for Jalen Hurts, what I like about him is he runs that offense really well, but he knows how to pick and choose the times when he needs to run and take advantage of the way the defense is playing him. And I love quarterbacks that can move like that. And when the defense loses recognition of the quarterback, he'll take off and burn you. and pick up a key first down or run for a touchdown. He's just got a good sense. And Jalen Hurts is a lot like Dak Prescott. Very calm, cool, and collected. I like the way he handles his business, and I like the way he leads. And he's a tough football player. And you can pretty much forget about it with the tush push. If the Eagles get into a 3rd down and 2 situation, you pretty much know what's coming every time. We're going to line up and go tush push, and you're not going to be able to stop it. You're done. But I think for the Cowboys, if you're a Cowboy fan, you got to feel pretty good about your team coming out of game number 1. You know, I think a lot of people kind of piled on. They thought after they traded Michael Parsons that they were going to be done for. But I think the Cowboys, played a good game. And if you look at their upcoming schedule, they get New York at home in week 2, a trip to Chicago in week 3, and a home game against Green Bay. And if you can get through that stretch, let's say they're 2-2 after 4 games, then you have games at New York against the Jets, at Carolina, before a home game against Washington. And then they travel to Denver. So there's enough opportunities on the schedule to where they could have a respectable season. And Jerry Jones very happy with Dak after the game last night. But that was good. And like I said, I'm rooting for Coach Schottenheimer because no one liked that hire. I would like to see him, have a chance to succeed. I've always liked his offensive philosophy and the way he operates. You can expect the Cowboys to continue to have a purpose in running the football and provide that hopeful balance in the offense to where he takes some of the pressure off of Dak. But the Eagles are good. They're legit. The Eagles are a legitimate championship contender. You see it with the way they played last night. They're tough at the line of scrimmage. But again, without Jalen Carter on the field, it's a totally different defense. Just got to keep your cool. Don't spit. If you're going to spit on someone, you definitely don't go after the quarterback because the cameras are always on the quarterback, especially when you're playing the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. And that's got to suck too. That first game of the year is always the toughest because you're out there, you haven't played a full game, you've worked through camp, and those guys are gassed. And then all of a sudden you get an hour delay because of the lightning storm, and then you have to go back out on the field and somehow get warmed up and ready to go again. Like, that's a difficult process for week 1, for your first game. Because it normally takes probably a quarter of the season, 4 games in before the guys really start to get their wind and conditioning up. Because camp and practice is one thing, but playing games for a full 60 minutes, they're not used to that yet. So it takes some time to get up to that point. But I'll get to my picks coming up here at 5. I want to work through the NFL. I think there's a lot of great games. We got the Chargers and Chiefs coming up here in a few minutes on YouTube. Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. And it does not look like Christian McCaffrey is going to play on Sunday. That's a big advantage for the Seahawks, right? Huge divisional game in week 1, and the 49ers may be without one of their key weapons in Christian McCaffrey. And McCaffrey is to the 49ers offense what Jalen Carter is to the Eagles defense. They need him out there. That's going to be a great game. 49ers Seahawks Sunday afternoon at Lumen Field. All right, we'll get to my NFL picks when we come back. Chiefs and Chargers are going to kick off here in just a few minutes, and I'll update you on the Mariners coming up here at 5 o'clock. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, this just in. Friday night's game tonight at Gessa Stadium between Tri-City Dust Devils and the Hillsboro Hops has been canceled. One of their players, Rio Foster, was in a passenger car accident earlier today and has sustained serious injuries. So no game tonight. The NFL season continues here. In just a couple of moments, we have the Chiefs and Chargers on YouTube. Kansas City favored by 3.5. Micah Parsons listed as questionable for Sunday's game when Green Bay hosts Detroit. The Packers favored by 1.5. Oregon will take on Oklahoma State tomorrow at Austin. Kickoff at 12:30 on CBS. The Ducks are a 28.5-point favorite. Oregon State also will kick off at 12:30 at Reeser. They host Fresno State. That game's on the CW. Beavs a 2.5-point favorite. Taking a look at the Major League scoreboard, as dangerous as this might be, the Mariners right now in action in Atlanta, and the Braves on top 1-0. All right, I've got YouTube up, so I've got access to the Chiefs and Chargers. That game will kick off here in a few minutes. We got a full slate of college games coming up tomorrow, and I want to walk through week one of the NFL with the games coming up on Sunday. I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of the Chargers tonight in week one against the Chiefs, and the key comes down to one of the angles on this that's pretty interesting. I think right now Kansas City is favored by 3.5. And the angle that I came across today is that you want to play against the defending Super Bowl loser as a dog or favorite of 8 or fewer points in game one of the season if they are facing a division opponent. Well, the Kansas City Chiefs fit that criteria. And right now, if you go against that team, the defending Super Bowl loser, 12-0 since 1988. So there you have it. I like the Chargers to cover that 3.5, but I think Kansas City probably gets the win by a field goal. And I can't wait to see how the Chiefs look. You know, are they better at receiver? Are they in a better position, you know, with their offensive line, unlike what we saw in the Super Bowl? We're going to get a lot of those answers. All right, here are some of the games that I like coming up on Sunday. At 10 o'clock on Fox, I like the Buccaneers minus 1.5 over the Falcons. I think the Bucs aren't getting enough respect in this situation. I think they'll be able to get pressure on Michael Penix, and I expect Baker Mayfield to get off to a strong start. Tampa Bay has a chance to be one of the top seeds in the NFC based on their schedule. I think they're going to run away with the NFC South, and I see them being able to have good balance on offense this weekend against Atlanta. Give me the Bucs minus the 1.5. The one game that I think a lot of people wouldn't expect that also is a very good one because you got a divisional game and you've got a home dog, and that would be the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Browns are going to have a rough year when it's all said and done, and it's going to be a rough first 6 weeks because their schedule is so brutal. But this situation here at home, we know that Joe Burrow and the Bengals have not been good in their openers, but also the Browns here getting 5.5 points. The Browns have a terrific defensive front. The Bengals have question marks on their offensive line, not to mention their defense. And I think they're going to be able to get a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow. And I think that will cause the offense for the Bengals to have a couple of mistakes. I expect the Browns to be able to run the football. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get the upset. But I think the Browns can cover that number. It should be a very close and tight battle, Bengals and Browns. And right now the Browns are in that situation where they've got a veteran team. They have a number of guys who can play and make plays on defense. But most importantly, they got a quarterback in Joe Flacco who is going to run the offense the way it's supposed to be run. And he should avoid the big mistake. He's got a lot of experience, so he'll be able to step out there and run that offense with competency. Elsewhere, I like the Dolphins to hammer the Colts. I think Indianapolis is favored in this game, which is a bit bizarre to me. I'm just not a believer in Daniel Jones. Not a believer in Daniel Jones. I'm not a believer in Anthony Richardson. And the Colts, while I like pieces of their roster, I just think they're set up for a tough year. I think the Colts and the Saints are going to have really bad years, and it's going to be a big-time problem. Now, for the Dolphins, the key for them is health, but I expect their offense with Tua to put up some big numbers on Sunday. I like the Dolphins to get the win. I also like the Raiders getting 2.5 at the Patriots. As I mentioned before with Las Vegas, they got Pete Carroll now. They have a veteran squad, and they've got Geno Smith, who understands what Pete Carroll wants to accomplish. They're going to run the football. They're going to play smarter football, and they're going to be really zeroed in on ball security. Now, with the Patriots, there's no doubt that Mike Vrabel is going to step in and do a better job than Gerard Mayo. Mike Vrabel's a great coach. I think it was the right hire, but it's going to take some time before he can get all those pieces put together to get them back into postseason form. And with Drake May, it's one of those things, second-year quarterback, we got to see more from him. What is he going to be able to do? I like the Raiders in a close one. That's a sneaky, very good football game. I like the Jets over the Steelers. That also a morning game, 10 o'clock on CBS. The Jets have a really good defense. They've got a quarterback who is athletic and can maneuver. And I think with the Steelers, it's pretty simple. I like their defense. I love their head coach. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be productive this year, but it's early in the season. The Steelers haven't had a lot of time with their starters to work together in camp or in the preseason, and I just expect a little bit of rust on their operation. Question marks about their offensive line. Are they going to be able to have balance between the run and the pass? And how long will it take Aaron Rodgers before he gets comfortable in that new offense? I like the Giants to cover the number at Washington. Giants and Commanders, 10 o'clock on Fox. I think it's at 6.5. The Giants are one of those teams where I think they have a chance to be better than expected. They're not a playoff team. I think Russ will do a good job of keeping the seat warm before they make the move to Jackson Dart. But what I like most about the Giants is their defensive front. They have some very good young players on defense. They have terrific pass rushers. I can't wait to see Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau get after it together. And I like their coach in Brian Daboll. I think the Commanders get the win, but I think that's going to be a very close ball game. Elsewhere on the NFL slate, I'll take the Seahawks over the 49ers. The clincher for me really was the news that it looks like Christian McCaffrey's not going to play in that game on Sunday. I like the Seahawks to win the division or be right there with the Rams in contention for the NFC West. But I really like what Coach McDonald has done. And John Schneider has done a heck of a job of drafting, but they've made some improvements on the offensive line. The Seahawks defense is young and athletic. I expect them to get after Brock Purdy on Sunday. And that situation up in Seattle for a home opener, it's a very difficult road game. But the 49ers right now, youth on defense, a lot of rookies and second-year guys. They get Robert Saleh back, but it's going to take him some time before those guys get up to the level he wants. I'm excited to see Sam Darnold in the Seahawks uniform. I think the Hawks are going to be able to run the football. No Christian McCaffrey is going to cause problems for Brock Purdy and that 49er offense. Love the Packers over the Lions, -1.5. I think Green Bay, with the addition of Micah Parsons, puts them in legitimate Super Bowl consideration. It's just a matter of Jordan Love's health. If he can stay healthy, the Packers are going to be just fine. But it doesn't look like you can count on Micah Parsons to play this weekend. He's listed as questionable. He's been dealing with the issue with his back. So if he does play, it'll probably be on a limited basis, but I still like the Packers to be able to get the win. Big fan of Jordan Love. Love their operation and the way that they run smoothly there in Green Bay. That's one heck of a football game. Because that division, the NFC North, is going to come down to those two teams, the Packers and the Lions. And that's it. Those are my picks for week one. Ravens and Bills Sunday night. I have no idea. I mean, that's a titanic matchup. I lean Buffalo in that game, but I just can't wait to watch it. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, two teams that faced off in the postseason last year, and two teams that will be, competing against one another to get to the Super Bowl this year. But I like Buffalo to get there. I think this is Buffalo's year. I think they've got a chance to maybe go 15-2 and get home field and finally break the curse of the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Chiefs have been the big issue for Josh Allen and the Bills. And one thing about Josh Allen, even though he hasn't had the success against Kansas City in the postseason, it's not because he hasn't played well. The guy's been unbelievable. But there's so many good ones. And how about that game on Monday night? Vikings and Bears. We're going to have a chance to see Caleb Williams, first game in his second year with Ben Johnson as head coach. And then we'll finally get a chance to take a look at J.J. McCarthy. I'm excited to see McCarthy. I like him. I have no idea what type of pro he's going to be, but he's got a lot of skill position players, a very good offense around him, and a quarterback coach and head coach who knows how to work with guys. I'm a big fan of Coach O'Connell. That's going to be a heck of a game. And for Caleb Williams, I'm just going to pay attention how he's running the show. Is he getting the ball out on time and on target? Is he getting them into the right play? Is that reworked offensive line giving him time to step up and make decisions? Like, I'm going to be paying attention to all that. I love it. On the college slate, not as many good options as what you have in the NFL, or at least that's what it looks like on paper. The games I'm interested in watching will be the early games, San Jose State and Texas. I want to see if Arch Manning can rebound against a inferior opponent and develop some comfort out there on the football field. The big game is going to be Iowa at Iowa State. That's a 9 o'clock kick on Fox. The Cyclones right now favored by 3.5. Baylor's at SMU. And then you got to kind of fast forward throughout the rest of the day. Both Oregon and Oregon State kicking off at 12:30. And at 4:30, we've got two quality football games. Arizona State from the Big 12 traveling to the SEC to take on Mississippi State. I'm anxious to see that one. It's going to be on ESPN2. And at 4:30 on ABC, it's number 15 Michigan at number 18 Oklahoma. Now, if we just take a look at week number 1 with these freshman quarterbacks, true freshmen making their first start on the road, it didn't go so well. So how is Bryce Underwood going to handle the environment in Norman and that Sooner defense, which is really good? But the reason why I question whether Oklahoma can win the game or not is because they still have questions on their offensive line. And Michigan's defensive front is still one of the best in the country. But that's about it. In terms of must-see games, there's just not a lot that you circle and say, I have to see that. Some of the later games, San Diego State at Washington State, Stanford's going to be at BYU, and then you've got UC Davis and Washington, and the nightcapper at 9 o'clock, Sam Houston is over on the island ticket on Hawaii. And there you have it. Those are the games. Chiefs and Chargers have just kicked off. First quarter's underway, and the Chiefs have the ball first down and 10 from their own 25-yard line. And Pacheco is in the backfield, and so bizarre to see the Chiefs back out there. And I'm not a fan of either team, but I do love the Chargers unis. With the powder blue and the yellow pants, that's a sharp look. Sao Paulo, Brazil. The game's free on YouTube, so you can check it out if you're wondering where to watch the game tonight, Chiefs and Chargers. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I appreciate your time on this Friday. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, the Chargers right now knocking on the door. No score with 9:16 to play in the first quarter down in Brazil. Chiefs and Chargers. It'll be third down and goal from about the 5-yard line for L.A. We'll see if Justin Herbert can punch it in. But a bizarre play happened on the Chiefs' opening drive where you had Xavier Worthy, that second-year guy out of Texas, the speedy wide receiver they have. He was running across, and Patrick Mahomes was under pressure, and Xavier was trying to get to the ball. And then all of a sudden it was crazy, but he ran into Travis Kelce. And it was one of those deals where I don't even think Worthy saw Kelce, and they collided. And you saw Worthy in a lot of pain as he was coming off, and he got with a couple of the trainers, and you could see that they kind of popped his shoulder back into position. So it looked like a shoulder dislocation. I'm not sure if that's what happened, but that's what it sure looked like. But, man, he didn't even see it, and Kelce just hammered him. Not like Kelce was trying to do that. They just ran into each other. But, dude, I've never popped my shoulder out of joint, but I've talked to people that have. Like, that's not something I want to experience. I don't need to experience that to know that it sucks. Also pretty exciting, too, to see Mario Hampton, that rookie running back for the Chargers. He had a couple of carries on their first drive, and that is a tough, tough runner. And Herbert took him down the field. They got the touchdown just now and waiting for the extra point, but the Chargers with the early lead on the Chiefs. So a lot of action there in the first couple of minutes. Now, when I came in today, I had a envelope that was sitting on the desk here in the studio, and it was from a gentleman named Tom Johnson who lives out in Gresham. And I opened it up. It's a letter, handwritten letter, which is impressive. How many people write letters in today's world? How many of you have received a handwritten letter anytime in, recent history? The last, pen pal that I had was my grandmother, my Nana. We would write letters to one another, and I always enjoyed receiving letters from her, one, because I got to hear from her, but also I enjoyed seeing her handwriting, which I thought was pretty. But this is dated August 23rd of 2025. And Tom writes, Chad, I've been meaning to write you for some time. Several years ago, you spoke about the positive influence Ron Sonka had on your career as a young voice on the radio. Ron's son, Derek, played in our program for 3 years, and his daughter, Holly, was the best babysitter we ever had. Ron is a prince. Since then, whenever I am driving from 3 to 6, I am listening to you, and you do a great job. Best wishes for continued success. Respectfully, Tom Johnson of Barlow High School. And it's on a piece of paper, and I'll show it up there on YouTube. It's almost like Barlow High School letterhead, where here at the bottom it says, Barlow basketball, a tradition of excellence, and it's got a picture of the bear right there. Well, Tom, I appreciate you taking time to write me a letter. That's very nice and very kind to reach out. And I thank you for the times that you are in your car from 3 to 6 and you tune in. Ron Sonka was a gentleman that I worked with at KVAN Radio, 1550 AM over in Vancouver. When I was working at Health Experience Athletic Club in Vancouver, I worked there when I was younger. I started when I was a senior in high school, and I worked there for 8 years up through my time in college. It was a great place to work. I met a lot of good friends there. In fact, two of my best friends in my life that I'm still best friends with today, I met at this athletic club. My workout partner, Luke, who he and I have been working out together now for 32 years. He's a great friend, and he's been a great mentor for me. I also met my buddy Steve, my boy Steve down in Vegas. I met him through Health Experience Athletic Club. So we're talking about great friends, and the bosses I had, Joe, Larry, and Nelson, the Mello brothers. They own the health club. I work for them. Great guys. I enjoy my time there. And I've gone on to see their kids go on to do great things. Manny Mello was, I think, basketball coach out of Battleground, also athletic director. I think he's doing some life coaching now, but he's a tremendous young man. So anyways, met a lot of good people there. And one day I was at the front desk and a lady came in and she wanted a tour. And so we would hand these slips to people when they would come in and they would write their name and occupation, where they were from, and just a little information slip so we could use as a follow-up callback to see if they were interested in a membership. Well, on her little form that she filled out under occupation, she wrote radio announcer. Well, young Chad latched onto that real quick, and I started talking to her. Her name was Pam, and she told me she worked at K-Van. And before you know it, she asked me if I wanted to come in and give some home fitness tips on her, morning show on K-Van. I said, of course, I'd love to do it. So she started bringing me in, and after a few weeks of stopping by, I ran into John Phillips, and he was the first person that gave me a job in radio. I started working and covering their high school broadcasts because K-Van back in the day would cover all of the Greater St. Helens League. So all the schools over in Vancouver. We did football and basketball. It was a lot of fun. And Ron Sonka was someone that worked with John at the radio station. And he was the voice. He would do the play-by-play for the high school games. He would host some of their sports talk shows. And that's where I met Ron. And so Ron was one of those older guys I had a chance to be around that, helped me a lot when I was young and had no idea what I was doing. And one day, and I don't know if it's going to be anytime soon, but one day I'll bust out. I have a box of cassette tapes. And I met Gavin Dawson, who I worked with for years here in Portland before he went to Dallas. I met him at K-Van. So that goes to show you it's a small world. Another guy, Brian LaMartina, who is a program director in Pittsburgh, I met him at K-Van. So it's just amazing, those relationships, the people you run into, how important some of those end up being over the course of time. So I met Gavin there. John got me my first opportunity in radio, met him there, and then Ron Sonka. But, yeah, I had a chance to work with Ron for years, and Ron went on to do, high school sports for years and years. And that's how I met him. And so I'm pretty happy to hear that, Tom has reached out from Barlow Basketball. Very proper to, respectfully, Tom Johnson, Barlow High School. So there you go. Every once in a while, I get letters occasionally. A lot of times people now, they'll type their letters out. My handwriting, the problem is, I spend so much time on a keyboard now, like most of you do. And what happens is that I don't spend that much time writing. So my cursive has just gone to crap. And so if I'm going to write something out by hand, I just use print. I don't write in cursive anymore. And if I tried to write in cursive, it'd have to be one of those things that I think about. Do they even teach that in school anymore? I don't even know if they do. I'm not even sure if Kaylee went through any type of writing course or cursive or anything like that. That was like a big, big deal. I still think one of the most important classes I took, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think it was when I was a senior at Prairie. I took a typing class to learn how to type. I was either a junior or a senior, but I took the typing class, and that typing class turned out to be one of the most valuable courses I ever took because I got the basics of how to utilize a keyboard. And, I type every day. Like, that's a skill that you have to have. What I wish now is that, if I had grown up, if I wasn't my age, it'd be nice to grow up and have access to, like, a social media course or how to do video or edit pictures or so forth. Because it's a challenge sometimes to, as the technology changes to, teach yourself different things. Right now, Kansas City with the football. The Chargers lead the Chiefs by a score of 7-0. And Kansas City has the ball just across midfield. They just called timeout. And as I mentioned, Xavier Worthy ran into a brick wall named Travis Kelce and dislocated his shoulder. And Jim Harbaugh has his headset off now, looking around like he has no idea what's going on with 6:14 to play in the first quarter. I still can't believe they put a big divisional game like that down in Brazil. It's crazy. All right, Rip City Drive Chad doing here. You can reach out. Telephone number is 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. You can find me on X at Chad and Rip City. And don't forget, you can always listen live and podcast the show via our free iHeartRadio app. Let's go out to Sandy. Kevin is out there. He knows Tom Johnson. Hey, Kevin, I appreciate the call. What type of intel can you give me on Tom Johnson?
Hey, Chad, I appreciate taking the call, man. I have to say it because it's true. long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh,
but,
thank you.
It just sounds funny to say that, but love the show. Anyway, Tom Johnson, he's a head coach, men's basketball at Barlow. He's just an absolute stud. He's a pillar in the community, and I guarantee I'm one of hundreds that are listening to you, maybe thousands that recognize the name. He's a complete class act, and I hope I get this right. Winningest high school basketball coach in the state. Been doing it for a very long time. Hit his 700th victory this last year, and won the state championship for the first time for Barlow High School. So he's an absolute pillar in the community. He's been doing it super long. His kids came up. One son through the program. My best friend was on his varsity basketball team, and I never played varsity basketball at Barlow, but I went to kids camps as a kid that he hosted with Freddie Jones, another Barlow alum that he coached, who was kind of an up-and-coming NBA star with Indiana, and then later finished his career in the Portland area. But can't say enough good things about Tom. He's a cancer survivor, been through hell and back, and just an all-around amazing dude. So I wanted to give him some extra props in addition to his beautifully written hand letter that you told us about.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's on Barlow letterhead too. But Kevin, what's really amazing about people like Tom Johnson is that when someone like that retires or moves on to something else, like, you don't replace that type of guy in the community. He is irreplaceable.
Irreplaceable. He was a great teacher, great man, great coach, and I hope he gets to enjoy his retirement. And I'm kind of, I don't talk to him. Some of my friends do. I hope he rides out on top, but I understand he's still there and still killing it. So I'm stoked to wrote you a letter and that you read it out loud. I appreciate it.
Can you believe that? His championship victory was for career win number 711. 39 years in, 711 victories, and he got the championship.
Yeah, unbelievable dude.
Well, Kevin, I tell you what, man, first off, thanks for listening, but I'm really glad you made the phone call to share love for Tom Johnson, because I thought it was really nice for him to reach out and write me a letter. I've heard great things about him, but I've never had a chance to meet him.
Yeah. If you do, you won't forget it. But I love the show, love the Blazer talk. I'm excited for the season. NFL is great too, so thanks for covering it all on my commute home.
Hey, Kevin, what did you make of young Hanson's summer league play? Were you excited about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in line with everybody else. What a mystery pick! Initially when I saw it, I was kind of swearing up the storm. I was a little frustrated, but as soon as you kind of dive into the YouTube videos and you see the fundamentals, the basics you can't really teach, the instincts, I think it's going to be interesting. I really do love Donovan Clingan. I hope they can kind of figure out kind of a 1A, 1B approach with that. And I know center health is kind of a sore subject in the Portland area, so maybe 2 is 1 and 1 is none. But I don't mind investing the pick when you're kind of in that late lottery and you get to pick up your first-round pick next year. I think it's a pretty sweet move. And if he's half a Jokic, I think he's a steal.
That's pretty awesome. All right, Kevin, dude, have a great weekend, my friend. I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you very much. See ya.
There you go. There's Kevin and Sandy. How great was that phone call? And that's most people out there. They listen, but they have no desire to call and hear themselves on the radio, and I understand that. But I love this. Tom Johnson from Barlow led the boys basketball team to its first championship in 2025. 39 season tenure, 711 victories, becoming the 4th coach in Oregon history to reach 700-plus wins. And just some other key notes on him. He reached significant career milestones, including 700 wins in January of 2025 and 711 by the end of 2025, placing him among Oregon's top coaches. Johnson and his 39 seasons at Barlow, beginning in 86-87 after a 3-year stint at Lebanon. A core part of his philosophy was building a strong community around the Barlow program, with many former players returning to support the team. Johnson retired from teaching English in the spring of 2024 after 38 years at the high school. He is recognized for more than just winning. He is praised for his leadership, dedication, and positive impact he's had on the lives of his players. His commitment to mentoring young men and the lifelong bonds built with his players and the Barlow community are central to his legacy. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now, that is a life well lived right there because he spent 39 years coaching, 38 years teaching. Think about how many different students he has impacted over the course of time. These are the type of men and women that we need in our community. People like Tom Johnson. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. This letter is a keeper from Tom Johnson. All right, update on the NFL game that's going on right now, Chiefs and Chargers. Right now, 7-0, Chargers on top. Chiefs have not been able to score points on their first two possessions, but they held the Chargers to a 3-and-out, so they've got to punt the football away, so good field position coming for Patrick Mahomes. And I would say the field conditions, at least from what it looks like on television down in Brazil, look pretty good. Pretty good. You know, that's the thing. The players, they get so used to the great facilities we have with the NFL stadiums here in the States. Sometimes when you travel, you don't get quite the same in terms of, you know, the sod or the footing. You know, sometimes the stadium's set up depending on where you go, but it looks like a pretty good operation down there. All right, you can always reach out. Don't forget youtube.com. You can pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. Be sure to subscribe to the page. You can follow our live streams there. You can pull up any of the old shows. And you can also podcast and listen live via our free iHeartRadio app. Don't forget, tomorrow I'll be down at Spear Mountain Casino. It'd be a good day for you to come down because both the Ducks and Beavs kick off at 12:30. You can hang out in the cushy chairs, watch the games, get something to eat at 10 Barrel Brewing, and I'm going to be in charge of a drawing at 4 o'clock with cash and different prizes. At 4 o'clock, we'll give away a $500, $300, and $200 cash prize. And all you have to do to be a part of the drawing is any $25 parlay that you place. It can be a 2-teamer, 3-teamer, whatever you want. You can do up to 4 per day. A $25 parlay will get you a ticket into the drum. And then we're going to do the drawing at 4 o'clock. That'll be tomorrow at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. We'll keep things rolling here. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Man, this is Mario Hampton. He looks like he's going to be something special for the Chargers, like the Jim Harbaugh type of back. And L.A. on the move once again in Kansas City territory. They lead the game by a score of 7-0, but have it on the Chiefs side of the field with 2 minutes to go in the first quarter. Rich Eisen and Kurt Warner are on the call. And Herbert right now throwing strikes. Another completion, first down as they continue to move. Right now, Justin Herbert looks sharp. He looks razor sharp right now. Very, very good. And I just want Justin Herbert to have, the success that everyone says he should have, to get a couple of playoff wins under his belt so people can stop knocking him. Because when I look at Justin Herbert, I just see one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He can move. That's one thing I noticed so far in this game, too. Last year he was dealing with that foot injury. So I think the Chargers were very cautious in how they utilized Herbert. But you could see early in this game a willingness to take off and run and utilize his legs. And he's a very good runner. I mean, he's not a statue. He can move. And when they use that, and when he's able to put pressure on the defense that way, it can make a big difference. But right now, he is stepping up and delivering the football. He is on fire right now. He looks real good. Very impressive. What are the early numbers for Herbert? 7 of 9, 118 yards, a touchdown, and no picks. Patrick Mahomes so far, 2 of 7, 16 yards. So a slow start for Kansas City. But as you know, we've all seen this story before. A 14-0 lead on Kansas City is basically like a tie game because they can hit you with so many, big plays in a hurry. So you always got to keep your guard on. You got to keep the pressure on. You can't let up against Kansas City. But, yeah, Hampton, man, he ran strong in college, and he's running hard tonight. Very impressive. And I hate both teams. I'm a Bronco fan, so, the Chargers and Chiefs make my skin crawl. But those Charger unis are so nice. So good. Lab McConkey getting a breather on the sideline right now. Now we'll see. Chargers got a chance, but when you got the Chiefs off to a slow start, you got to cash in and take advantage. And that's why it's got to be played. But, man, that AFC West is going to be tough. Like I said, I went through the Broncos' schedule. I think they're going to win 11 games, be 11-6. I just don't know where that's going to place you in the AFC West. You could be first, but you could also be second or third because the division is so deep. It's crazy. And then you got 4 Hall of Fame coaches. But I mentioned this when he took over and got the job. I believe this. It's just a matter of time until Jim Harbaugh has the Chargers in a Super Bowl. He's that good. Here's another run by Herbert. I mean, he stayed on his feet. He just ran for a first down inside the 5. Justin Herbert is clearly healthy, and he's looking to take off. He broke like 3 tackles to set that up. And there's another flag down. Typical. Usually there's a lot of flags in, week 1 as teams adjust. Holding penalty on Jamari Sawyer. That's a problem. What a great run by Herbert, though. But that's the big thing that jumps out at me. Just Herbert's movement, his willingness to take off, and the pressure that's going to put on the defense with his legs. What game was that? That was we saw that in the Rose Bowl, right? When he won the Rose Bowl with Oregon. They used his legs as a weapon. Crazy, crazy. All right. So we got football. Yeah, I love this time of year. It's going to be great. Week 1 in the NFL is always wild. And the question is, there's always a team that comes out of nowhere that did not make the playoffs the previous year, but jumps into the mix the following season. And so I'm just trying to figure out, who's it going to be this year? Who is that team? Non-playoff team that's able to bounce back and get in. So in the AFC, the Raiders, Titans, Jags, and Colts, along with the Browns, Bengals, Patriots, Jets, and Dolphins. So if I had to pick one of those teams, I would probably lean Cincinnati, who missed the postseason last year at 9-8. And that's because they've got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I would lean Cincinnati in that group to make the postseason. In the NFC, Dallas, the New York Giants, the Chicago Bears, Falcons, Panthers, Saints, Seahawks, Cardinals, 49ers. I mean, the Seahawks were 10-7 and missed the postseason. The 49ers had a down year at 6-11. But if I had to pick one of those teams, I would lean in the NFC. I'd lean Seahawks or 49ers. 49ers on the basis of their schedule, but the Seahawks, I think, are going to be really good. Really like their defense. And it certainly looks like Christian McCaffrey's not going to play in that opener coming up on Sunday. So we shall see. Also, a reminder, we're early September, still good weather, still plenty of time to get out and play some golf. And I would encourage you to go out and check out Forest Hills right now. Get your tee times now. Just go to golfforesthills.com. The course is in terrific condition right now. And it looks like, I looked at the extended forecast, it looks like we're going to get, at least another 3 to 4 weeks of good weather. And a lot of times that will kick into the first week of October before the rain starts to move in. And I played this morning, and it looked like it wanted to rain. It never did. It was just really muggy outside. But it was perfect conditions. Temperature wasn't too hot. Had some cloud cover, so the sun wasn't blinding you in your eyes on any particular holes. But it was really muggy out. Like my hands were clammy. You could just feel the kind of the moisture in the air. But I really enjoyed the weather this morning. I thought it was nice. But the extended forecast looks good over the next few weeks with good weather, and that means more golf time. But it's sad because I know that the golf season is nearing an end. Football season's beginning, golf season's nearing an end, and basketball season's right around the corner. And Kevin, the gentleman that called in, he's excited about Blazers season. I am too, because I think the Blazers are going to be a good basketball team this year. I think they'll have a winning record. I think they're going to play good defense, and I'm excited to see some of the new faces. All right, enjoy the football games tomorrow, my friends. Big thanks to Michael Shacker. And don't forget, Ducks, Beavers kick off at the same time tomorrow. And come down and join me at Spirit Mountain Casino. We'll have the drawing in the sports book at 4 o'clock. For Bet College Ball, your chance to get in on that. You can head down tomorrow. Great place to hang out with me. And you can check out all the college football action. And both the Ducks and Beavers will be on in the sports book. All right, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the first weekend of NFL action. And we'll